Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the June Fishbowl session. My name is Steph Pruss, and I'll be facilitating in the background today. Today's session is a little different to normal as we have Stuart and all of the pod leadership team here with us today to present the pod group and team plans for FY22. So you get to see all of them as we rotate through each team, starting firstly with Stuart. At the end of each session, we'll have approximately, at the end of the session, we'll have approximately 30 minutes for questions. So please make sure you head to Menti and enter in the code from the meeting invite to make sure your question gets through. If you have a question for a specific leader, we just ask that you add their name in the box. And if there's any that we don't get to, we can always send around answers at a later date or discuss them in future fishbowls. First of all, though, I will hand over to Murray to begin our switch on moment.
Morning, everyone. Morning, everyone. Hopefully I'm unmuted now.
Yep, you're good.
Great. So my name's Murray Dunstan, for people that don't know me, and I am going to do our switch on moment this morning. So I thought it's a really opportune time for us to mention, to talk about the COVID vaccine, because recently, over the last couple of weeks, vaccinations have been opened up for people within the 40 to 49 age group bracket. So that's in addition to people that are in at-risk groups in 1A, 1B and over 50s. So I know a lot of the pod leadership team have gone out and done a vaccination already or already booked in. I did it myself last week. So I just thought I'd run through how to go about it to encourage you to get along and do it yourself. It's really easy to do. If you just Google search COVID vaccination Queensland, you'll come up to the Queensland Health website, and on that website there you can click on the link and register. Once you register, then you get sent an email as a bit of an offer, and you can click on the links in that email to go and choose an appointment time for somewhere near you that suits you, and book in and do it. At a place that's close to you. So I did it up on the Sunshine Coast, and it was really, really easy. I did it at Nambour Hospital. There was quite a few people there when I did it, so it took about 45 minutes in to wait in line, but the jab itself took about a minute, and then I had to sit in a waiting room for 15 minutes while they check on you to make sure everything's okay. I know Matt did it, Matt McCann did it last week as well. Well done, Matt, and Trev. I know Trev's booked in for next week as well, or the week after. So look, there's all the information you need about the vaccine is on the Queensland Health website. So you can find out all of that sort of information. Obviously, it's up to you to consider your own circumstances and whether vaccination is right for you. But all of that information is there so you can make the right choice for yourself, and I encourage you to do so. Thanks very much.
Great, thanks, Murray. Alrighty, we'll send Stuart in now, and we'll get the first slide up. Over to you.
Thanks, Steph. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. So before I launch into the content, just a couple of things I wanted to say. So thanks to Steph and the team for organising this, and a big thanks to all the leadership team for joining and running through their plans individually. We've got a couple of apologies, one of which is me. I've actually been called into a risk management workshop with the department at the last minute, so I'm going to have to step out of this when I've done my little piece here and leave you in the very capable hands of the leadership team. So apologies for that, unavoidable, and when our responsible ministers department tell us that we need to be somewhere at the last minute and it's super urgent, unfortunately, we have to jump whether we like it or not. So, but you've got a very capable team here to look after you for the next hour and a half or so. The second apology is Michelle. She is in a post Barnes Hill trial workshop with all of the stakeholders that were involved. Obviously, very critical piece of maintenance work there. So, Joe, I understand, is going to stand in for Michelle and present her plan. And as Joe's been fully briefed and can answer any of your questions on Michelle's behalf. So they're the apologies. And then the second thing I'll say before getting into the content is questions. So I won't be here to answer the questions personally, but the team will do that. As I say, highly capable. So you're in safe hands. I would ask though, however, A, because I'm not here, and B, because of the focus of this session, that you limit your question content to questions around what you see presented today. This isn't a general COO Fishbowl question for the more general questions that I normally get asked. And I'm really keen for the team to get feedback on the plans, because the questions are feedback in themselves. I'm sure there's things on many people's minds at the moment around the culture survey, around the current conversations around CLC contracts and many other things. If I could respectfully ask you to hold those questions for a different forum, you're welcome to get in touch with me anytime, as always, individually or even as a group, that's fine. Stuff related to CLC type stuff, please direct that either at your manager, myself, or ideally at the PCS team, because they're best equipped to answer your direct questions if you have direct questions. And the next Fishbowl in a month's time, I can answer a whole bunch of those questions and others, all the normal ones, including some of the more interesting and sometimes more challenging personal questions that I get asked. I'd ask you maybe not to ask too many of the team personal questions, but I reckon they're probably good for one each, so don't hold back completely. So that's all I wanted to say there. So thanks, Steph. So the what you're looking at in front of you is how we've thought about how do we put our plans together to align to our organizational strategic objectives. So we've got line of sight of what each one of us does, whatever your part within pod, line of sight directly to our strategy. So you'll see at the top our Water for Life vision, then our strategic objectives, the 5 strategic objectives. What we've then done as a team is to look at, well, what are our pod group objectives to help deliver that strategy, those strategic objectives? How are we going to measure success against those objectives? What are each of our roles? What are some of the risks in order to, what are the risks to us achieving that so we can manage those? And what are some of the improvement initiatives that we need to put in place in order to achieve those objectives? So it's kind of the risk and opportunity side, if you like. And then finally, what are our principles as a group? You know, how do we beyond our values, you know, our organizational values, what are some of the principles that we think is appropriate for us as pod to live by? So that's kind of the chain, and that's how we've thought about it. So really every individual's TAP and team plan will align all the way straight to our vision and strategic objectives. That's the idea. So it's kind of like a big triangle, if you like, with the vision and the strategic. Okay, Steph, next slide, please. Okay, so I'm not going to read all these out. You can read them quicker than I can say them. But again, across the top there in the coloured boxes are the strategic objectives, and there's the pod objectives beneath them that we believe is our main objective to contribute towards those strategic objectives. So there's one around people, one around health, safety and well-being, asset management, end-to-end capital planning, which are strategic priorities, as you'll know, capital efficiency, operating efficiencies, ensuring our asset base can provide water supply ahead of the demand curve, so we're not, you know, behind ourselves or playing catch up. And from water quality as well as a water supply perspective, and then a couple around our stakeholders. So, you know, the environmental and cultural heritage value is very important to us, and you will have recently seen the elevation of that into our health, safety and well-being and environment. So they all go together in terms of, you know, their profile within the organisation, which is a great leap forward for us. There's a lot of stuff in here about that. And then license to operate. So that's not just customers, that's our stakeholders, that's the environment, that's our local communities, that's landowners that you know, we have to cross their land or use pieces of their land or have easements on their land for our assets. So that's how there are our objectives. Steph, I just give maybe a second for people to read. last bits. If they haven't, they're pretty short, so hopefully that you should have got through those. Okay, if you want to move on to the next slide, Steph.
Cool.
Thank you. All right, so what are our measures of success? So this is the first time I believe that we've set ourselves some KPIs which are about our group performance. So we have organizational KPIs which are set and the board measures us as an organization against. Now these are all related to those 5 strategic objectives and are in alignment with those organizational KPIs, but these are the things that we're going to do in pod and measure ourselves against as teams as to how we're performing against the objectives that we've just run through briefly. Again, I'm not going to read all of these out. You can read it quicker than I can say it, and I'm just going to read them if I read them out, so it doesn't make a lot of sense. But you can see we've got safety leadership in there. We've got asset management improvement program. That's what AMIP stands for. Capital ones around capital planning, completion of internal audit actions. That's aligned to our organisational KPI and has been a key area of focus over the last few months. And I need to thank everybody involved in really upping the game in terms of our closing those out. We won't make our KPI target for that this year at an organisational level, but we've hit 100% for the last 2 months in a row, and we are catching up. So that's really great to see. Again, some more capital stuff, but specifically around the financial side of that. Then water supply certainty. So this is around. I actually don't know what CCP is. I'll have to defer to Murray or Matt on that one. I can't think of what the acronym means, but again, water supply certainty.
It's the critical control. So the HACCP exceedances.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. It's the critical control. It's the HACCP exceedances. Thanks, Murray. Don't know whether he was live when he said that, but I could hear him. And then finally, around the stakeholder piece that I just talked about at the back end of the last slide. So, and look, it's what I would say about this. So that one is around percentage of water for life conversation logged as environmental conversations. So what we're trying to do with these measures is trying to find something that is relatively easy to measure, is meaningful in terms of the objective, and something that we can track easily, and in as many cases as possible, leading or immediately post lagging indicators where we can. So it's not something that's way in the past. We can on a monthly basis look at kind of heartbeat level and say, well, hang on, let me just take the last one as an example. We're only hitting 5% of our water for life conversations logged as environmental conversations. So we need to up our game with those in order to raise environmental awareness, which is one of the key tenets of the stakeholder and community piece. So that's the idea of those. Okay, Steph, next slide. And then the next phase was, what are our roles? So these are the roles of each of the teams, and the individual managers of those teams. You can see that the regional operations are grouped there because we've obviously got 3 regions, but they all perform the same role, just in a different geographic region. That's been done as a team, but also been very, very much developed by the individual level 3 managers and taking on board feedback, day-to-day feedback that they get from you and your teams. Again, not going to read all those out. We'll leave them on the page for people to read at leisure. And then finally, what are our principles? So the core principle is that we do the right things the right way always. And this is a concept of operational efficiency. It's not about pure operations in terms of water operations, although of course that's a subset. It's really about the way that we work. So we make sure that we're doing the right things, we do them the right way, and we always do it that way. If we do that, we will perform well, and we will meet our expectations and obligations. So whether they be regulatory compliance expectations and obligations, whether they be community stakeholder expectations, whether they water quality expectations, whether they be behavioral expectations between us, if we do that, we will achieve a high performing culture, which is what we want to achieve. Some of the kind of call out principles beneath that kind of general principle Create and maintain a safe organizational environment, make objective data-driven decisions to manage our risk. So we actually use data to make our decisions and manage and have a filter on that around how does that help us manage our risks, rather than doing what we might want to do that actually isn't necessarily the most appropriate thing to do from a risk-based perspective. We've got to focus what we do on the reason why we're doing it, which is risk mitigation or satisfying a strategic objective, but use data to make those decisions rather than opinion. The data is much more powerful, so we can actually see the truth of the situation. Efficient use of CapEx and OpEx. We're under increasing pressure from government to be more and more efficient with both of those things. So there's lots of things that we can do in that space, and that's really checking ourselves to make sure that we're doing that. Balancing our focus of today and tomorrow. So that's very much around what's the here and now for today, the next week, this financial year, versus what are we trying to build for the future. There's always a constant tension between those two things. We've just got to make sure that we create the right balance in that tension, so that we're not foregoing building good things for the future just for short-term gain, or vice versa. So we get that balance right. And then finally, build and sustain a culture of accountability and responsibility. We can't do any of these things unless we each take accountability for our piece of it, accountability and responsibility for our piece of it, and that includes being held to account if we don't do it, and that includes me as much as the managers on this call and all of you. So it includes all of us, Neil, the board, everybody. So we all fall on. Thank you, Steph. And then the last one is the key group risks and initiatives. So again, they are orientated around those 5 strategic objectives. I'm not going to read them all out. I'm probably out of time anyway. So I need to leave time for people to talk through the plans. I'll just hold, maybe Steph, you just want to hold them up there for a minute and allow 2 minutes and allow people to read them.
Mm-hmm. And this recording and presentation will be available for people later on as well to have a read through too.
So look, the risks I think speak for themselves, and I think the initiatives speak for themselves. And maybe a call out. Most of these initiatives are already underway, and many of you will be involved in them in some way, or on the receiving end of hopefully some of the improvements that are already happening. One of the call outs I would put is implement the people and culture strategy. So you will have seen from the output of the last pod meeting that we got presented the people and culture strategy, which is pretty exciting, and a bit of a roadmap for us going forward over the next year or two. So we're committed to implementing from a pod specific specific level, because of course those roadmaps only really come to life where the rubber hits the road, which is with our teams on a day-to-day basis. So that's one call out. Most of the others are in train already. Maybe another one, asset portfolio risk reviews, facility and asset portfolio risk reviews. So looking at facilities and assets at that level and what the risks are, so we can start to coordinate what the types of investments we need, whether that's maintenance or capital investments, in order to mitigate those risks. Whereas I think in the past we've probably done small pieces of facilities in a piecemeal way. This is a more holistic way of planning, which I think is a big step forward for us, which is great to see. And maybe OpEx savings initiatives. So just to make that clear, that's really how do we get more efficient with our operating costs, and that's not about people. That's actually about how do we get the best bang for our buck for the spend that we have. There's many buckets within that, which includes consultants, discretionary spend. There's all sorts of things we can do to be more efficient about the way we spend money, i.e. spend less of it, but still achieve the same or the better outcome. So there'll be lots of small initiatives there, because this is really about an aggregation of marginal gains, really. So lots of small initiatives aggregated usually equal quite a decent sized saving, particularly when the group's as big as the one that we're all. With that, I'll sign off and leave each of your managers to talk through their individual plans for your areas. And again, apologies, I can't stay any longer. I'm going to have to dive back into this meeting that started 25 minutes late, which is great. Thank you very much to the department for messing around my day completely. So have it, enjoy the session and be kind, but not too kind to your managers with the questions, please.
Cool. Thank you, Stuart. Good luck with your other meetings.
Thank you.
Alrighty, just bear with me as I change over these slides. So now we're going to head into each of the team plans and we're going to start with Trevor. So I'll just jump through to this slide, which is relatively similar to what we've seen. Go for it, Trev. You are on mute.
Okay, hopefully you can hear me now. Sorry about that.
Yep. No, you
yeah, so look, really excited to talk, join the rest of the managers today and talk to you about the group plan and obviously the asset maintenance team planners and how that connects. So again, you'll see this screen a lot. It's pretty consistent and it's really around, as we said, our principles of how we operate, that operational excellence part, how that rolls up into our team plans, and that rolls up again into the group plan and rolls up into our strategic objectives. So there's a good line of sight of how we actually are supporting not only the pod group but the business through the process. So I'll go to the next slide, Steph.
Yep.
So I guess asset maintenance team plan. So for those people who don't know, I mean, our role in pod is to develop and optimize asset performance and ensure the safe delivery and compliance of maintenance and operational tasks. We want to drive efficiency, enhance asset information, and ensure sustainable and reliable assets to reduce operational risk. And we also manage our major contracts to deliver best outcomes for secure water. So in the team, we have 7 sort of groups. We have our maintenance planning and scheduling team who deliver the scheduled maintenance across all of business. And we also do a lot of work around the technical plans and work with our asset management team around alignment to the asset class plan. So important piece for our maintenance delivery and ensuring those reliable assets. Minor works capital, so a really emerging piece in the business around not only the planning of that emergent works, but actually the delivery of those minor works, and the, I guess, campaign projects that we have from time to time. Our maintenance reliability team really are reviewing project scopes and supporting, I guess, improvements. They look at management of change, which is a real focus for us this year. And also, as I said, the business case development and management of the program for the minor works. We have our internal performance and HSEQ team, and that's aligning with the corporate WHS team and our environmental teams. And that's really to give an enhanced focus on safety, environment and quality within the collaborative maintenance contract with Wood. We obviously, the maintenance teams, the delivery teams sit in the regions and are part of the regional teams, but also form a really important part of the success of the Wood collaborative contract. The service program section, which obviously I said manage those major contracts, so our contracts with the D-Cell, Western Corridor, with Veolia, and obviously the Wood contract. And we have another focus area, the maintenance improvements team, and they're really looking at driving efficiencies and initiatives and improvement strategies across maintenance. Again, underpinned by those principles that we spoke about, which will be consistent across pod. Steph, we'll go to the next one.
Sure.
So what you'll see here is there's some key risks, and a lot of those risk controls are consistent to our group ones. And this is really to demonstrate how our initiatives are rolling up again into support those high level initiatives. So you'll see consistently across all the plans, things like the implement people and strategy culture, they're business wide initiatives that we all need to play a part in. But as you read through that list, and I won't go through them all, you'll see specific ones related to asset maintenance. And I guess one to point out in there is really the develop and implement the collaborative culture plan. So that was around how wood and SEQ Water work together, not only in the contract, but in the coalface and day to day, and how that aligns, I guess, to the culture that we want within SEQ Water. So that's really important. Through the other areas there, the group, really that alignment to the tactical, our tactical plans to the asset class plan. So really need collaborative behaviour there. And obviously some of the work going around the CI Anywhere, which is the CIS platform and our asset maintenance system and the improvements we're doing there. Tight working with the capital work around minor works. We're also in there in our strategy around OPEX savings initiatives. So the team are looking at third-party contracts and, potentially can we drive better value propositions for Pod in how we deliver and engage those contractors. The next bit really talks about some of the V&V work around the purified recycled water. So that's linked all with the Western Corridor recycle restart. And obviously there's looming triggers around the restart of that. Board has approved restart of 3 of trains at luggage point. So there's a lot of work going in that space, working closely across Pod and water quality. And the last bit on that screen, that slide there, was really around, just aligning with, I guess, the collaborative maintenance contract with our safety and environmental teams. And we fall under those management systems. So really important that we align with that. Thanks, Steph.
Thank you. Alrighty. Let's get John going. Okay.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yep. Good
Fantastic.
to go.
Fantastic. Okay, I won't repeat this slide because it's pretty similar for everybody. Just want to say that it's a great period of change in the organisation right now with a lot of initiatives and a lot of objectives, and it's going to changing the way we actually do work and deliver work. If we go to the next slide.
Yep.
If you look at our role, it is really around helping develop the strategies that define what we should be spending our capital money on, and then also helping us when we've run out of capital, what we should be doing on the operating side, developing those strategies that delivers an output, a service. And as a group, we really split into these four individual areas. It's around asset information. It's critical that we understand the information coming from the data, from the work that we do, to understand where our hotspots are, where our problems are, where our risks are. So having a good asset information system and having it functioning well is key. Prudent asset planning, well, that's asset management, and it's probably one of the areas where we haven't been complying previously with the international standard. And compliance isn't everything, but for us, it's about how we deliver asset management and considering not only what we do right now, which is current state, but future state. So what's going to happen to these sites in the future, and then thinking about it on a site-by-site basis, so that we can, rather than having 50 projects over 3 years on one site, we can have a smaller number of larger projects to help deliver the right sort of outcomes. And so planning these well in advance so that we can actually achieve that. From a strategic planning point of view, yeah, it is modeling, it is master planning and developing the business cases, but it's thinking about we're doing more of that front end loading and more of that work that's currently happening in gate 1 and gate 2, and therefore we're having to cycle back. So it's about improving our processes in that pre-gate 0 and gate 0 process. So we do more of the thinking, we do more of the forensic engineering, we do more work up front, so that we can then, when we get into these later gates, a lot of the thought and decision and analysis and investigation has been done. So it becomes more of a simplified process through there. And then there's the CPGG and our overall capital portfolio. It's been I think it's been one of the success stories of the last year, how we have we've been running the CPGG, and we've been helping the organisation understand how it's spending its money, where it's spending its money, and managing that cash flow. But the other part of it is we've also got a QCA. It's not an audit, it's a review. So before Laura yells at me, it's a QCA review, not an audit. And when they review us, it's important for us so that we can help recover our expenditure over the past years and help develop a plan for the future. Let's go to the next slide.
Sure.
There are an enormous number of initiatives that we're working on. There's probably more here that can be listed on this page. At last count, there was something like 30 or 40 different initiatives that we are working on as a group. I'll call out some of the key ones. The Asset Management Improvement Program is definitely a big one that we're working on. Katie Jones, who's now the new principal of the Asset Management Improvement Program, has a lot of the work to pick up on, but we've delivered the early pieces, which is the asset policy review, the new asset management system, and the SAMP. And those are foundation documents. They set the direction of where we're going to go. So we're really now going to go into the next phase and looking at things like developing. We've just finished the development of the new planning guidelines, and those new planning guidelines will lead us into the development of, rather than doing a project by project approach to strategic assessments, Gate 0, we will develop now a program strategic assessment and a strategic options assessment for the IMP. This piece of work over the next 6 months that we're going to do will really help us understand what our optimized expenditure is going to be, or optimize what are the projects we need to deliver over the next 30 years, and give us more surety and certainty around those projects. Some of the other pieces we're working on, the integrated asset management plans. What does it mean by integrated an asset management plan? It means, if you take a look at the example we're going to deliver shortly with North Pine, it's not just thinking about the renewals that have to occur on site, it's thinking about the growth elements that we need, such as the pump station upgrade, such as the water treatment plant upgrade, and thinking about how can you deliver all those holistically in a smaller number of larger projects. And so those integrated asset management plans are really going to again be foundation documents to drop into the APMP the right projects. There's the gateway process that we're looking at developing, that we're putting the final touches to with Steve's team to go out next, hopefully next few weeks, and that will, for anything other than major projects, mean that our gates are going to be a lot simpler. We're going to see a fundamental shift where Gate 0 becomes a principal project requirements document. It helps get stakeholder feedback in early into a project. It helps us manage the process smoother, and there's going to be a better controls throughout the actual project life. And I'll call that one of the last ones there, which is the PRA on dams. That's the portfolio risk assessment. We do it once every 10 years. We need to do one again now. It's a piece of work that'll take 18 months, but it will tell us really when we've got to deliver the next piece of work, and that's Bruce's team and Payman's team delivering those pieces of work. It'll help us deliver the understanding of the right timing of these sorts of projects. So a lot of initiatives, a lot of different pieces of work going on throughout the entire team, but we're going to see step changes and improvement occurring through this year, through next year, to get us to a good state of asset management and strategy.
Cool. Thanks, John. Alrighty, let's get Murray. All yours.
Great. So can you hear me, Steph?
Yep.
Great. So again, I'll skip over this slide. It's the same for all of us. So operational support and improvement. So our role is to provide fit for purpose operationally focused services that support the ability to achieve POD's objectives and manage risk. And we enable ability to meet operational compliance standards and move towards leading practice. So we've got a number of teams here, and I'll go through each one of these in brief and just tell you about what the role is each one of those teams. So Environment, Heritage and Land Use Planning is Harry Gordon's team. So their role is to build an organisational culture that fosters environmental, cultural heritage and land use planning stewardship while enabling ability to meet operational compliance standards and move towards leading practice. So the focus of the team over the next financial year is really around this organisational culture around environment. So you see a lot of work in that space. The Incident, Emergency and Security Management team is Jason Balderman's team. Jason's team's there to provide operationally focused emergency and security management services. And there's a number of things going on in Jason's team at the moment, in particular, the update of our emergency response plan. Group Performance and Analytics is Alvin Cam's team. And so Alvin looks after he provides performance and analytics services to enable POD to make data-driven decisions that improve the delivery of objectives and reduce risk. Alvin also has Kim Pickering in his team, focusing on our licensing requirements for our water licenses. We've got operations continuity led by Rob Drury. So Rob's working on those operationally focused improvement issues, and I'll talk about some of those in the next slide. We have operations improvement led by Laura Conroy. And Laura's involved in a multitude of work across the business, mostly focused at the moment on our asset improvement. Risk and assurance are led by Ellie Hubbard. So Ellie's focused on her roles to provide risk and assurance support across POD for effective risk management and improved risk maturity. So there's a number of things that she's working on there, working with Steph on the ION project at the moment as well, which many of you would have been involved with. And of course, Justin Lee's team with Recreation and Catchment Services. And their roles to support regional operations to deliver high quality recreation and catchment services by turning policy into action. So they're really providing that link between ASP from John Dodano's team and then the operational teams to deliver that sort of subject matter expertise in that catchment recreation space. Next slide. So you see the difference in these slides compared to the ones in the overall plan that Stu had. What we're focusing on here is the team risk controls in that top section. So these are the BAU activities that the team delivers in order to manage those POD risks. So, as the other managers that have gone before me have talked, there's a lot of BAU stuff in there that's like for everyone. But I guess the things to call out in this from what our team does from a BAU perspective are really around those fire management and compliance patrols in the first component about improving safety and organisational culture. We're also involved in providing advice for the asset portfolio master plan and the capital investment lifecycle framework. But the key that we do that sort of sets us apart is administering the environmental management system. So it's directly what Harry and his team does with Dan Peter-Hughes. So in the strengthening financial sustainability section, we're involved in any of these projects, so we may have to go to the CPGG, and of course we're making sure we have prudent budget management. Then over in the increased water supply certainty area, again, this is a lot of what Jason Balderman's team is doing. So we're managing that incident emergency management framework. We manage the emergency management manual, which provides direction on how we deal with incidents and emergencies at SEQ Water, and the bulk supply emergency response plan, which is the next level up of how we manage emergencies across the supply network. Over in the increased stakeholder and community customer satisfaction strategic objective, obviously, again, our environmental management system is really important there, and our certificate of insurance programs, as well as our cultural heritage relationship management, and then the work Justin's team administers through the planned burn program. So again, there's a lot of initiatives through there. A lot of them are like for like across. You'll see those ones that have pod against them are ones that are across all of pod. So something that I guess things to call out that are specific to OSI around that improved systems and processes for natural asset management. So this is really a review we're doing on how we manage our natural assets and what Justin's team, how that fits into the bigger picture at SEQ Water to try and improve that process and get the best bang for buck and deliver the best outcomes we possibly can. So we've almost finished a review of that, and then into next financial year we'll be using the outcomes of that review to redesign some of our systems and processes and the way we do things in order to make that better. An important piece of work that Ellie Hubbard is leading is around the pod risk management framework. Most notably, sort of an outcome of that, I guess, that you're starting to see, or you would start to see, is the ION review currently underway, as well as the facility risk reviews and those types of activities, all leading to this better way of managing risk across pod. And a project Rob Jury's working on is around operational documentation improvement. I know a lot of the coordinators have been involved in some of these meetings that Rob's leading around how do we get our documentation better. We've got a ton of documents. How do we manage it in a way that's efficient and fit for purpose to move the business forward? And Alvin's developing an analytics and insight strategy. So he's already started doing some work on looking at the data that we've got, and all of you would know we've got a lot of data, but we don't often use that as well as we could to get the best out of it. So he's working on a strategy to try and get the best out of the data that we've got and create some insights out of that. Obviously, we're working across savings initiatives as well. Another key thing to call out is the Energy Queensland MOU, which Rob Jury is leading. So this is us coming to, I guess, an agreement or managing a relationship better with Energy Queensland to come to them not as a multitude of little customers buying electricity off them, but as an entity working together with them. We're big. We are a large user of energy across southeast Queensland, and what we do in our infrastructure, where we upgrade or decommission our assets, can have a big impact on what Energy Queensland does. So we're trying to move forward together with them in a partnership, and that's the idea behind that. And of course, the Environment and Heritage Cultural Change Roadmap, as I said before, we're trying to, our big focus for next financial year is going to be, for the environment team, is moving towards that leadership culture in the environment and cultural heritage area. And we're working closely with the safety team to piggyback off the leadership programs, etc., that they're doing, as well as the risk team in business services to make sure we're all working together on a path forward. That's it from me, Steph.
Cool. Thanks, Murray. Rightio. Let's get Fiore up. All yours.
All right, we're good to go.
Yep.
Good morning, everyone. Steph, if you could just move to the next slide. Yes, as Steph kindly introduced me. Yep, Fiore Zulli. As you can see from my background, I'm also Aka Jon Snow, the King of the North, and certainly assure you that the winter has certainly arrived, and my role is to protect you all from the White Walkers and the Wildlings. So getting the Game of Thrones references out of the way.
I love it.
Really a quick intro into the Northern Operations team that you can see on the slide there. You can see that the team is very much split into treatment operations. So that is operating our water treatment plants in a safe and efficient manner. This is led by John Smith and John Smith in Moreton, North Somerset, and Brett Mendham in the Sunshine Coast. We also have our dam operations and catchments arm. That is led by Phil Benson, and they manage and operate our water storage, irrigation, catchment and recreational assets. We've also got our asset maintenance and delivery team, which Trevor alluded to earlier, led by Jason Lucas, and they deliver pretty much a whole host of maintenance services across the region. And also our control systems maintenance team, led by John Close, who delivers control systems maintenance services across the region. So for those of you who are pretty much new to the organisation, they're pretty much the go-to people in terms of those particular disciplines. But also, last but not least, in our team is the wonderful TSO, Jo Flint, who some say she's the real ROM around the place, who supports us by providing admin services, and we're really truly lucky to have her. In terms of the role of the team, it's really to provide, as you can see, to provide fit for purpose, operationally focused services that support the ability to achieve POD's objectives and managing the day-to-day risks. And we enable that by having an ability to meet operational compliance standards and move towards leading practice. Pretty much, in other words, we optimise our ops to safely and sustainably deliver quality water to our customers and services from catchment to customer in our region, and we deliver on our promise for Water for Life as one team and one family. And you would have heard on a few occasions now, this is all underpinned by this principle of doing things the right way, doing the right things the right way always, which is absolutely fundamental in achieving excellence in our operations. Steph, can you go to the next slide?
Sure.
So you'll see in the following slide there's quite a fair bit of alignment between each of the regions. So when Jo also talks through from Central and Southern, you'll certainly get the same sort of themes, and we're all at different maturity levels for each of these items. So I'll just share with you a couple of the things that we're working on in the North. Firstly, we've got a significant program running to ensure we get operator competency and certification across the whole region. As an example, we're really well and truly focused on having our water treatment operators achieve the nationally accredited certification status, which very much provides assurance to the regulators, our communities, and anybody that uses our drinking water, that our operators have a specific set of knowledge, skills, competence and experience to manage these drinking water assets according to a recognised standard. And that is absolutely critical and important, that we're leading into a more professionalised system here. In the North, we're also continuing to a program of cross-skilling our supervisors, our operators, our rangers, our maintainers over multiple dams and plants and catchments to really improve on our operational resilience, particularly in terms of after hours management response, and the people that we have on call are fully equipped to be able to make good decisions based on good operational knowledge, with all the nuances that happen across the region, and there are certainly some. So we want to get a well and truly consistent approach to managing these situations, and we'll do that by ensuring that we've got some cross-skilling happening. You all would have heard that we've recently rolled out the Simplified Risk Assessment and Critical Controls framework, which provides us with the tools to help us mitigate risk when we're doing our day-to-day tasks. The focus really next year is to really completely embed the use of these tools at all levels in the organisation, and then pretty much it becomes part of the vernacular, and we use those as our BAU. So it's really about inculcating those tools in all our risk management processes. We'll roll out a set of operational expectations that provide some guidance on the way we operate and really align to achieving operational excellence, which is very much underpinned by this principle of doing the right things the right way and always. It is an absolutely fundamental cornerstone of achieving operational excellence. You can have pretty much the best systems in the world, you can have the best procedures in the world, but if you're not disciplined in in using those, then that certainly has a very high potential of leading to incidents in my experience. And you can see them even from, you know, external industry disasters where things haven't gone the right way because we haven't been disciplined in our approach. In terms of systems, Trevor mentioned that we've got some improvements to the management and change process. That'll be integrated across all of POD. And we'll also complete, you know, it's going to be a really hard slog of working through our Eye on Backlog process. We trialled this in Debra last week with really good success, and thanks to Steph and Ellie, who's been working through in the background in getting that done. So we'll have certainly some focus in that area around doing that. Plus the facility risk reviews will continue doing any of those that are outstanding for next year. I wanted to touch quickly on standardising some operational protocols and procedures around hazardous chemical management. Particularly in the north, we found a gap in chlorine gas systems. So that includes any SWMSs or SOPs, even through the work that Murray mentioned that Rob's doing in terms of really standardising that across all of our chlorine gas systems. And that will certainly require some audits, potentially rectification works as we go through that process across all our plants. Trev spoke about MIS. John spoke earlier about the asset management improvement and the gateway process. So in ops, you know, we'll support those and do whatever is required from our perspective, and also support the minor works and capital works program. We've got a couple of OPEX savings at some of our key water treatment plants, particularly around sludge management that we're focusing on, and that's at North Pine. And also we have a potential initiative around optimising Baroon Pocket level dams to, Baroon Pocket dam levels to reduce our operating costs, but we'll need to explore that in a little bit more detail with water security around whether we can optimise that. You can see on the slide there's a little bit that references CONOPS, so our concept of operations. I'll leave Joe to talk to that one because that's a common thing across the regions also. And I'll end off just in terms of control systems and SCADA infrastructure. We'll certainly continue a program of reducing our risks and renewals around obsolete equipment. We'll have that aligned with ops and OT objectives and work very closely with them. And one thing that I'll be really proud to complete, and big thumbs up, is we're really well on track of completing our HACCP alarm interlocking program across the region, where our plants can automatically shut down if it sees critical HACCP alarms being reached. So that one is going to be another big ticket item for us to tick off. So that'd be a great one. And also in the control systems maintenance space, there's cyber security, and we'll work with that. Around introducing all the relevant protocols around reducing our risks in cybersecurity. And last but not least, around dam and catchments, we've got our burn program every year focusing on high priority burns. We've set up resources to complete those, and we'll certainly be also optimising our usage of drone equipment to help facilitate dam inspections, weed reduction programs, and all that sort of really good stuff. That's it from the north.
Great. Thanks, Fiore. Alrighty, so as previously mentioned, Michelle is unavailable to join us, so Joe has kindly stepped in for us to take the next section. So I'll just jump, if you're right, Joe, for me to jump through to this slide.
Yep, that's fine. Can you hear me okay, Steph?
Yep, away you go.
What I was going to say for the previous slide and for everybody, I think hopefully by now all the people who are in today's meeting have noticed a common theme before we've even gotten to our team plans, is over the years we've heard a lot about inconsistencies and making sure that we're all aligned, we're all speaking the same language, we've all got the same objectives, there's no silos, those sorts of things. So hopefully those that have been around or those who have just joined us have really seen that has been listened to loud and clear by this brand new pod leadership team. So it's really, really important to us that, you know, we are a united pod leadership team. We all know how each other works and fits in the grand scheme of things. And especially when you see the 3 regional team plans, hopefully you'll get that warm and fuzzy feeling as well, that we've really listened to that feedback over the years and definitely taken on board that, you know, it is one pod team. It's the enterprise view over individuals or individual teams. And that's hopefully a sentiment you're seeing by us all having the same overall objectives, measure success, role clarity, even across regions. So that's the purpose of this slide here. Why it might seem a bit repetitive to people, that's the intent of it, is to show people that as a pod leadership team, we are 100% aligned and we are committed to showing that consistency across the leadership team and indeed across pod for the support of all of SEQ Water. So happy to go to the next slide now, Steph. Again, for those who remember me from the bad old days, I used to be in the Central region, so I still hold a great fondness for the team out there. And when Michelle asked me to speak to her region on her behalf, I was obviously more than thrilled to, because she accuses me of stealing half of your staff anyway and bringing them down to the southern region. So I won't go through all the different roles there because, as I just explained, the treatment, dams, asset maintenance, catchment, control systems and networks are all the same fundamental functions across the 3 regions, and so they should be. The only thing that differentiates us really is that we do have very different assets across some of our regions, and that's where some of the differences and how we may operate them or maintain them may be different. I've got challenges that Central has challenges that Southern doesn't have, and vice versa with the Northern. So again, as you could see, Michelle has network operations in her team, just like Fiore and I do, because though Central team are in charge of actually operating the network from a control room perspective, each of our respective maintenance teams is responsible for the on-the-ground operation and maintenance. So again, wanting to have that unity. So we'll skip forward to Michelle's next page, please, Steph.
Yep.
So again, as Fiore really ably explained, and I could probably save everyone a bit of time here, on those improvement initiatives down the bottom, you'll see all the ones that have got pod on them. Well, they're those cross-pod ones that we're talking about. Regional ops share a really important part in, I guess, the entire picture and supporting things that John and Matt and Trevor and Steve and Murray have highlighted, because ultimately we're the people that they want to come and talk to ask us to be involved, to provide feedback to improving the systems and processes. So it's really key from North, Central and South that when we get asked to be involved and, you know, put our hand up and volunteer in the many initiatives that we've seen from the pod groups today, ultimately regional operators have to look back and go, well, they're doing this for the betterment of us and for our business. So I really encourage regional operations on all 3 regions to get involved in supporting the pod peers with their successes, because their successes will be our successes. So going down, you can see some wrong ones there, as Fiore spoke to, but again, really important compliance work around ladders, platforms and walkway, working with Trevor's team on that, and same too with vermin proofing. Some of the other sort of really important bespoke ones for Central region is under that orange tab, the network production planning and scheduling capability. I know Michelle's been really passionate about this, as Fiore and I have. This is really to, I guess, optimise what we have today. I think John spoke to it earlier about, I guess, using what we have. I know Stu did more efficiently, but really, as many of you be aware, that as population increases, I guess the freeboard or capability in our assets starts to reduce and we start to sail a bit close to the wind. So this particular function or strategic initiative is really to work out how we can better use our network, optimize it so we can get closer to our MOS and our AOS, and making sure that we're moving water around as efficiently as we can. But in this day and age, water quality also, the targets are increasing even more so. So making sure that we're not wasting water and we're ensuring that we meet those health-based targets as we manage the network and send it around to ultimately our customers. Some of the ones under the grey one there, you see the Mount Crosby variable cost analysis. So Michelle has got some great skills in that area. So she'll be looking into more efficiencies for that site. You know, even north, south, understand that Mount Crosby is a huge part of the production into southeast Queensland, and therefore costs for power, chemicals, sludge are really, really high. So any time we spend on looking at those variable costs in that area is well worth it. Maintenance, plant and equipment utilisation and procurement. So again, looking for some standardisation around that. I know all 3 regions will benefit from this particular initiative. We're looking at better utilising the gear we have and how we procure and standardise some of that equipment and even share it across regions, which is really important. Other than all 3 of us buying a particular piece of kit, using it smarter across 3 regions is definitely where we want to be. Spoke again about the network production planning and scheduling initiative. Barnes Hill, which is where Michelle is today, those might think, oh, you know, it's a couple of 1,200 valves being replaced, but really it's the impact on Brisbane that Michelle and the team have been doing some outstanding work on there in making sure that, you know, when we do have to cut the pipe, that we've basically factored every single possibility in, I think including meteorite strike, which is absolutely wonderful. So they're doing some great work there. Short-term disruption plans. Again, I love this sort of work. This to me is foundational work. If you've got a good foundation, and everybody knows what their role is between us and our DREs, we often find the relationship is far stronger and far more fruitful. I spoke about vermin proofing, and indeed you can see similar initiatives there with supporting the environment and cultural heritage change roadmap, indeed with the people and culture strategy. The other thing that was on the previous slide, and don't worry, don't go back, Steph, is really around that each of those teams, whether it be central, north or southern, is that commitment to our Safe for Life promise through everything we do. We have to acknowledge that we do a lot of high risk tasks in our areas. So things like embedding the critical controls and really stretching our legs on the simplify risk assessments and getting those SOPs down on paper, I think is going to pay regional ops huge dividends going forward in this financial year. So I myself, as a old crusty former safety manager, is really, really excited about where safety's going. Next slide, please, Steph.
Cool. So stepping into your region now.
Great. Happy to do that.
Go to this slide.
Yep. Once again, treatment, dams, asset maintenance, catchment control systems is all the same. As you're all aware, there's only one subtle difference is how the scenic rim operates, which is under Paul Rogers, which he looks after the water officers, which is treatment, dams, and catchment. At the moment, it's just the dam operators and field rangers who are the water officers. So that's the only sort of bespoke difference, I guess, there in the scenic rim. But again, once again, you can see the theme about creating, maintain and safe operating environment across all of those themes. So we've got Craig Boland, Paul Rogers, we've got Sam Vellanowith, we've got Craig Duncan, we've got Brian Argus, and indeed we do support Kieran and the network team also from a central region perspective. Principles are all the same, fully buy in and believe in Fiore's initial years ago plan of operational excellence and discipline. It is really important that we do the right things the right way and always. So I'm a big believer in that also. Next slide, please, Steph.
Cool. Again,
what you can see, as I said at the outset of today's conversation about regional ops, a lot of similar themes, a lot of removing the ability for that silo labelling, making sure that our operations teams have got visibility from strategy all the way down through to what they do in their everyday jobs that they're out there doing right now. So all those pod ones are consistent. You can see the ROM ones are very consistent as well. For me, the slight difference in my region, as Fiore said, some areas are slightly more mature than the others. So I've done all of the HACCP alarm and interlocks for all the 15 water treatment plants in the southern region. Again, shared all that data and knowledge with my peers, Michelle and Fiore, and we'll get to that when we get to the ConOps bit. But again, so what we're doing is we're trialling some of that foundational work. One of the largest risks in the drinking water quality management plan is actually we do not have verified and certified functional descriptions for all of our water treatment plants. Now, to the new joiners, you're probably going, oh my goodness, how don't you have the rules or even the plan of how our water treatment plants operate? It's a legacy thing and we don't have time to go into it today, but the most important part is we're doing something about it. So I'm trialling a system where I'm getting all the key stakeholders in the room and we're going to basically do a gap analysis into where we do have real high quality functional descriptions. Are they certified RPEQ? And do we have a SCADA code that matches it? Once we've gone through and checked out that gap and how hard and how much work's involved, I then share those responses or that answers with Fiore and Michelle, and then we go forth and conquer together. Again, as you can see there, we're supporting all the pod leadership team peers through the assets processes as well. Continuing to support Trevor and the minor works team. I do want to do a shout out there. It's been a fantastic work that Mike Mitchell and the minor works team and Rod Skinner and all those group have done. And I think it's really got a lot of the noise away from the brilliant work that Steve Panisi and his team are doing also. So that I think is working really well, and I'm really encouraged about it. CONOP, so Michelle put that in a brief that went out recently. Basically, all that is we're looking at how we want to operate and can more efficiently and effectively operate our control systems across our regions. And ultimately, the plan one day is, wouldn't it be great if we're in an emergency control room somewhere in Creek Street or an Icon, and instead of ringing up all the supply coordinators saying, how are you going? How's the plant going? Is it running yet? We can see on the screen what's going on, which helps the frontline operational teams concentrate on doing what they need to do in the event of an incident and emergency. Ultimately, it's about standardisation within clusters across sub-regions. And I invited Fiore and Michelle along, not just for a lovely lunch at Stradbroke, but I invited them along for a tour of what the CSM South team has done in the Redlands area, with support of obviously the great operators in that area as well, on how we've basically standardised our control systems in that area, and then what we can do to expand that through a concept of operation through the rest of the business. And you can see there, everything else was pretty much the same as the North and the Central team. So again, really excited about this year ahead. I can't wait to get into it. As Stu said and John Dardano said, many of these initiatives are very much in flight. So yeah, I can't wait to do this year together as a fantastically united leadership team, and indeed an entire pod team for the betterment of SEQ Water. So that's me, Steph.
Great, thanks, Joe. Alrighty, let's get Steve on. Okay, should be good to go.
All right, thank you, Steph.
No worries.
Might skip to that slide. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, just again with the themes, the previous slide just shows our a nesting of our tactical plans in with the strategic objectives, but there's no point in rehashing that. Essentially, from a sustaining capital perspective, there are a couple of things that we do, but we need to do those really, really well, and hence why we need to make sure that we do the right things the right way always. Two functions really are around planning and delivery, and we really need to make sure that those two functions are integrated as much as possible, not just within sustaining capital, but also within the battery limit between sustaining capital and ASP, because the life cycle of a project actually starts within ASP, and the thinking and the definition of the problem starts within ASP. So you'll see we've done a lot of work to really collaborate across that boundary there, and it's great that John's team have been really willing to speak to us about those sorts of things. So we're really starting to see some benefit there. But fundamentally, in terms of projects, we have a planning function or a description of what is the business problem that we're trying to solve, and really success in that space is all about efficacy and what of the options that we come up with, and in particular, if we can figure out how to not deploy capital in order to solve that particular business problem. That is the true value of what we do. However, at some point in time, we will decide that a certain business problem has a capital solution, and once we make that decision, we then need to take the ball and deliver that solution in the most efficient manner possible. At the end of the day, that's what we're all about. Efficiency in that space in terms of project management and project delivery. So essentially what we see there, what we want to achieve is effective and efficient planning function, effective and efficient delivery function, although the interpretation of effective and efficient is slightly different as I just described for those two functions. But the outcome that we're looking is to serve our customers, which is the operations teams and the maintenance teams, with whatever capital solution we produce as a result of that. Included within the sustaining capital team, we also do have a PMO, and I've called that out separately. The reason is because that really is all about data. If we link back to Stuart's introduction, where he really said we need to make data-driven decisions, that's a strategic objective. This is our part in that. The PMO is the centralized pool of data stored in a logical way where we can slice it and dice it and intersect it and make decisions from that data. That is the true power of the PMO. Comes with a couple of rules and things that are required, because having data is one thing, but being able to recall it, use it in a useful manner is another thing. And so typically we've suffered in the past by having lots of data, but we can't find it when we need it, or we can't use it once we've got it. In effect, that's the same as not having the data there in the first place. So there is a lot of improvements that we can seek to do there, but the PMO team is well and truly on top of that. Another important thing that I'd like to highlight is key to success in everything that we do is all around collaboration. I already mentioned the collaboration with ASP because of the life cycle of business problems. Collaboration with our customers in the ops and maintenance space as a true service provider to our customers, but also in the PMO space. We're going to start to see in the near future where we're going to be collecting data and holding data which is bigger than sustaining capital. It has wider impacts than just pod and potentially across the whole of the enterprise. If we could skip to the next slide, please.
Sure.
And the key thing that I wanted to highlight there is our initiative around the integrated master schedule, because that needs to be, once it reaches mature state, a whole of enterprise schedule, which everybody interacts with and contributes to, and the PMO then sort of uses that data and provides it to key decision makers. That is probably the biggest game changer that we're going to provide in the next little bit. The other things there, I'll let others read into it, but I really wanted to acknowledge the efforts of the integrated master schedule. So what is that? Just in a short summary, essentially it's not necessarily just a project management tool. First and foremost, it is the assets that we need to schedule. So we need to schedule their availability and their unavailability, and then we need to synchronize the projects or the other activities which interact with the asset base in and around those either uptime or downtime periods. Essentially, that's what it's all about. So more to follow on that. Thank you, Steph. That's all I have.
Cool. Thank you. Alrighty. Last but not least. Matt. There you go.
Thanks, Steph. Thanks, Steph, and thank you everyone for still being online. I see we've just gone up one and we've got minus 23 minutes remaining of these sessions. It's important on this slide to sort of capture from the strategic objectives, TSI, the Technical Support and Improvement Team, our focus will fundamentally be on supporting the operational delivery of the business with all the expertise within the team around making sure that we've got increased oversight of our asset management across the board, better improved capital efficiency, and we're leading to higher levels or more sustained levels of higher quality drinking water moving forward. So that'll be the three fundamentals of our financial year 22 team plan moving forward. Next slide, please, Steph. So you'll see the teams broken up. The TSI team's broken into 5 core areas, and there are 15 subcategory groups underneath those. In the dam safety and flood operations team, that's led by John Tavaldi and Michael Raymond, they provide technical input to our infrastructure upgrade program. They manage the flood operations services, and they ensure that we meet our regulatory obligations under Chapter 4 of the Water Supply Act. fundamentally, that's what that team's built for. They do a fantastic job. I saw a question come in through the Menti program. Flood operations is a fundamentally important part of our business. It's gone through such a significant change, and it's an embedded part of our delivery of operations moving forward. So they'll always go on a continuous improvement program moving forward, like every team, but that's fundamentally, they're baked into our business. The product quality team is led by Duncan Middleton, and that team, they cover manufactured drinking water, manufactured water, our water quality teams. We have a laboratory science team, and we've got our data science team in those areas, so separate leaders. And their focus is product quality activities in accordance with our quality management plans and the recycled water management plan. And obviously the laboratory quality, if you read the laboratory quality manual, it's over 500 and something pages long, I believe. So I haven't got there yet, but I'm sure I'll get there. Undertaking, we do risk assessments, water quality risk assessments, and we make sure that we're meeting our legislative and regulatory requirements as part of the Australian Drinking Water Guidelines. Our catchment science and optimisation team is led by Annalie Roux. In that team, there are 4 disciplines in that team. Catchment science, we have our water quality scientists in there, hydrometric team, and optimisation is a field and structure that will build in that team over the coming years. This first year, we'll start to identify what will be captured within the optimisation space in this team. They undertake our environmental and hydrometric surveillance programs, optimise those programs using latest of technology, standardising of the product in delivery to ensure consistent quality of our monitoring programs. And they also make sure that we're meeting our legislative and regulatory compliance. Engineering standards and assurance is led by Jeff Simmers in our team. They develop and maintain standardised engineering environment for our business. They manage our third-party works consents program. At the moment, they pick up telco, which we're looking to bring out this financial year, but at the moment, all the civil, if you think of anyone that impacts on a network, pipeline infrastructure, if they're wanting to build around it, that team manages those consents. And they ensure that our engineering standards meet legislative and regulatory compliance. In the process engineering teams led by DARPO, they undertake process assessments on the health-based target performance. They look at the plant process optimization projects across the board and performance to ensure that we have compliance with our relevant drinking water environment and supply processes. We'll go to the next slide, Steph.
Cool. You'll
see of the initiatives we provide significant support to a range of the pod initiatives. You'll see in there from the TSI, our focal point, as I talked about before, will support the enterprise information management framework delivery. The bit that's important to us around our asset management will be asset information systems. So how do we support, as part of the grander enterprise information management, around the asset information management? Importantly, the fundamental important part of our asset will be our drawing management program. We'll look to push our standards. We'll look at an operational efficiency of putting our standards online so that it reduces rework for our consultants moving forward. So it's an operational efficiency process there. Our plant process assessments implementation strategy is almost coming to a close, and we'll start to roll out. And this is about working out what sort of assessment should we do in what scenario. We'll support a range of others, their OPEX savings initiatives, as you would expect in this fiscally constrained environment moving forward. And we're always supporting the minor and capital works program. We're updating the flood manuals currently. We've got one more of those to go. The team's absolutely buried in that work from the flood and dams team. The water quality strategy has gone to the board more recently, and we'll start to build on that moving forward. The water quality data management system will be delivered towards Christmas this year. There's a lot of work in that, and it may see a variation to pick up the recycled water management plan. And our plant operations and data management system is unfunded at the moment, so we will continue to do what work we can with the money and the people that we have available at this time. That's me, Steph. Thank you, everyone.
Great, thank you. Alrighty, so we're going to fly through some questions now that have come through. So I'm going to direct the first one to Murray, which is, which objective is the top priority for POD in the first quarter of this financial year?
Thanks, Steph. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Right. So who said that managers could get 5 minutes to talk and think that would be achievable? So we've gone right over time, people, so I really apologise for that. I was a culprit myself. This question I will try and answer as quickly as I possibly can so we can get some more in. So the way the strategy is developed is that there is no individual strategic objectives that are more important than the other. They're all equally and we're all trying to deliver them. So how are we handling that within POD? What we've done is we've broken up those initiatives from the strategic directives to different managers for their work programs, and there's individual, as we went through with these initiatives, each manager went through and you can see how they connected up. So all of those things are designed for us to help us deliver on those strategic objectives. So in short, there is no specific one that is the priority. We all need to get them right in order to deliver on the strategy.
Great. Alrighty, next. And try and get everyone on for at least one question. Fiore, the principles, we do the right things the right way always, seem very black and white. Often our decisions don't have a right answer. What's the thinking behind these?
Yeah, thanks, Steph. Yeah, that's a good question. And really the thinking behind that concept of operational discipline and really about doing the right things the right ways is very much centered around having a consistent and disciplined approach whenever we're conducting any task that we do. And having a disciplined approach is fundamental in achieving excellence in operations. And I mentioned earlier before as an example, you have the best systems and the procedures in the world, but if you don't choose to follow them, or if you're not disciplined in follow them, particularly under, let's say, an emergency or under duress, in my experience, that certainly does lead you down the path of really, really big incidents. But having said that, the right thing, for example, if the procedure you believe is doesn't make sense or is leading you down the wrong path, then the right thing is about getting the right people involved and the right expertise around you before deviating. So it's all about doing things, you know, in a structured and disciplined approach. So I also mentioned that there'll be some expectations. So an expectation around doing the right things the right way would be, you know, operate when you're doing the task, say, with your safety devices armed or following regulations. So you step into a car, what's the first thing you do? You wear your seatbelt, right? That's a perfect example of having a safety device armed, which very much falls in line with that principle of doing the right things the right way, and very much focused on the word always, right? Another one is, you know, you're sticking to your speed limits. So we have an expectation that says you follow rules and regulations, right? So for me, whenever things are, it's black and white, when you've got grey, you always defer back to expertise. That is the right way, right? I hope I've answered that. Does anyone else from POD would like to add or contribute?
I'm going to get Steve to come on to contribute to the back end of that. You're ready to go.
Yes, thank you, Steph. Just to further support what Fiore was portraying there, often we're faced with decisions where we're operating in shades of grey, and it's okay to operate in those shades of grey, but the right thing to do is to follow the guidelines planning guidelines, for example, if we're making a planning decision, flood operations manual, for example, if we're dealing with a flood, there is always some sort of guideline available to operate within and make the best decision based on the information that we have at the time in accordance with the guidelines. Thanks, Steph.
Cool, thank you. And I might try and quickly get Joe on for the next question, and then that will be all that we have time for. So there is no KPI around culture. What's the plan to improve this given the recent culture survey results, and what does an ideal pod culture look like?
Mm-hmm. Excellent. I think I'm unmuted. Can you hear me, Steph? Yeah.
Yep, you're all good.
Right. Yeah, a really good question again. An exciting time. You all have seen Neil's email come out the other day, and we've got some evidence come through of the GSI, so the Safety Culture Survey. As Mel Williams, the head of PCS, says, there isn't a safety culture and a culture. It's all one culture. However, through that cultural work, we, soon as the pod leadership team this week, we'll be going through the culture survey results. We've seen the safety culture survey results, and we'll be developing action plans out of that when we bring it down through to the teams to support that process, I guess. So the answer is, you would have seen in the last comms from the last pod meeting, the disc profile that we're using and the preferential, I guess, styles of this pod leadership team. Lots of blue, there's lots of gold, there's the disc profile as well. So lots of, I guess, insight into how the leaders think and work. But fundamentally, the really important part is that this exact question is being answered, and I know you can't see it on my screen, by the people and culture strategy that was presented to the pod leadership team at last meeting. So within that, there's a specific element that talks to, so what are we going to do about the results that we've got and how we're going to go forward developing, I guess, a measurement around culture. So it's something we can measure ourselves to ultimately improve. And then basically the element under the priority, which is under leadership and culture, it talks about its focus area is culture. And under that, the activities that the PCS team will be obviously reaching out to all of us to engage in is implement aligned and integrated cultural measurement approaches and embedding our values and Safe for Life promise as well. So to the person who raised the question, excellent question. So fundamentally, we've got to unpack the survey results because they haven't all been released yet. So we can actually have a look about what our teams are saying about the good, bad, and the indifferent, where we've got opportunities for improvement. And from there, that'll also feed into the PCS strategy going forward. So the great news is when something's in a strategy or a plan, there's going to be action wrapped around it and commitment to it. So yeah, I'm really keen and can't wait to get into unpack the cultural piece and see what our team's saying out there and where we can improve things.
Great, thanks, Joe. All right, everyone, so that's our session for today. So there are some other questions that came through on the Menti, so we'll make sure that we get those answers to you. And also feel free to please direct them to your leader if you feel comfortable in doing so, because they are more than happy to answer. But other than that, thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you at the next session. Thank you. Bye.